Alright guys, this will be the last video for this week. And so we're working on writing linear equations. And so the first situation we had was where they give you the slope and 1 point, and then we write the equation and express our answer in both slope-intercept form and standard form. The second situation is if they just give you 2 points. So notice they don't give you the slope. Okay, but we need the slope to write a linear equation. So the very first thing we have to do, okay, is find slope. Okay, so we find the slope. Okay, so m equals delta y over delta x. Okay, and so I'm looking at my 2 lines, my 2 points, and I'm going to go this set of coordinates minus this set. So my delta y will be 7 minus 10. And then my delta x will be -2 minus a -1. Okay, so notice that I'm going to get a -3 over a -1, and we reduce that, and that just gives us +3. So our slope is 3. Okay, so when you come down here to write your linear equations, we use our slope is 3, so m is 3. You can use either one of these 2 points. It doesn't matter which one you use because they'll give you the same exact equations. So you just make a decision, which one do you want to use. Okay, so I'll just use the first one. Okay, so my x sub 1, y sub 1, I'm going to use -2, 7. Okay, so I go to my point slope formula. Y minus y sub 1 equals the slope, which is m, times the quantity of x minus x sub 1. And that's our tool for writing the equations. So I go y minus y sub 1 is 7 equals the slope, which is 3, times the quantity of x minus x sub 1, which is -2. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this double negative. So I have 3 times the quantity of x plus 2, and obviously bring down my y minus 7. Now the nice thing here is I don't have any fractions. Okay, so when I go to standard form, it's going to be really easy to do. So let's distribute the 3. Okay, so I get y minus 7 equals 3x plus 6. And then to get it in slope-intercept form, it has to be y equals. So I have to add 7 here and add 7 here. So I end up with y equals 3x plus 13, and that's my slope-intercept form. Okay, so I have my slope-intercept form. Okay, now I take that guy and I put it in standard form. So I start with what I have. All right, now, if we had any fractions, the very first thing I'd do is just get rid of the fractions. But I don't have any fractions, so all I have to do is take the term with x that's on the right and move it over so that both terms with x and y are on the left-hand side. So when I move it over, it becomes negative. So I get a -3x plus y equals 13, and that's my standard form. Okay, so remember, both of these equations describe the exact same line, they're just in different forms. Okay, got that guy out of the way. Let's try another one. All right, same situations. They don't give me the slope, they just give me 2 lines. Okay, so the very first thing I have to do is find the slope. Okay, so we have our slope, which is delta y over delta x. Okay, so I'm going to go these coordinates minus these coordinates. So delta y would be -6 minus a -11. -6 minus a -11, which means my delta x has to be 8 minus 2. Okay, so -6 minus a -11, that's 5. 8 minus 2 obviously is 6. Okay, and that's a reduced fraction, so that's my slope. So I come down here, and I know I'm going to use a slope of 5, 6. Okay, and I have to make a decision which point do I want to use. Remember, it doesn't matter which point you use, it'll give you the same exact equation. So you just choose one. Okay, so I'm going to choose this first one. I'm going to use 8, -6. Okay, if you want to use that one, go ahead. It'll give you the exact same answer. Okay, so I go to my point slope formula. Y minus y sub 1 equals the slope, which is m, times x minus x sub 1. And we substitute in. So y minus y sub 1 is -6 equals the slope, which is 5, 6, times the quantity of x minus x sub 1, which is 8. Okay, I get rid of the double negative over here, so that's y plus 6, and I distribute the 5, 6. So 5, 6, x minus, and right there, if you need this guy, use them. Okay, it's entirely up to you. So if we go 5, 6 times 8, and I'm going to write it as an improper fraction, I get 20/3 when it's reduced. 20/3. Okay, like that. So I want to put it in slope-intercept form first, so I have to subtract 6 and subtract 6. So I get y equals 5, 6x minus, now remember when you collect these, that's a -20/3 and a -6. Okay, let's see, plus 6. And I'm going to write it as an improper fraction. Okay, I get a -38/3. Okay, so there is my slope-intercept form. I know it's slope-intercept form because it says y equals. Okay, so there it is. All right. Now the last one we didn't have any fractions in it, so it was easier to put in standard form. This one we have fractions. Okay, so I have to take this and I have to get rid of the fractions. Okay, so I've got to multiply through by the LCD of the two fractions. So if I look at these two fractions and I think to myself, if I was going to add them or subtract them, what denominator would I have to use? Well, it would be 6. So I got to multiply through by 6 because that's the least common denominator. So I distribute that 6 to everything. So 6 times y is 6y. 5, 6 times 6 would be 5, so that's 5x. And I think this is 76, but let me check it to make sure. Okay, if I have a 38/3 times 6, yes, I get a -76. Okay, so I got rid of all the fractions. Now all I have to do is get the x and the y both over on the left. So if I bring this guy over, it starts positive on the right side, so when it moves over it becomes negative, so I get a -5x plus 6y equals a -76. And that's my standard form. Okay, once again, both of these equations describe the exact same line. They're just in two different forms. Okay, and we have to get used to working with both forms. Okay, last problem for this video. Okay, same situation, just like the last two. They give us 2 points, but they don't give us a slope, so the very first thing we have to find is a slope. Okay, so let's see, slope. Okay, so my little m, and that's my delta y over delta x. Okay, so I go here and I say, okay, which one do I want to subtract? I'm going to go this point minus that point. So delta y would be 0 minus a -5. Okay, so if I go 0 minus a -5 for delta y, I have to go -1 minus 6 for delta x. Okay, so I'm going to get a +5 over a -7, and we don't like negative signs down the denominator, so I'll move it up above. Okay, and 5/7 is a reduced fraction. Okay, so there's my slope. Okay, right there. So I come down here, I got to write my equations now. So I use a -5/7 for my slope, and I can use either one of these 2 points, okay, for my x sub 1, y sub 1. Now, I will tell you this, if you have one of the points where you have zeros, one of the coordinates, it's usually the easier guy to use. Okay, so you can use this one if you want. It'll give you the exact same equations, but I'm going to take this guy because it has 0 as one of the coordinates. Okay, so I'm going to use -1, 0. Okay, so I go to my point slope formula. Y minus y sub 1 equals the slope, which is little m, times x minus x sub 1. And I substitute in. And notice I get y minus 0. Okay, equals the slope, which is -5/7 times the quantity of x minus x sub 1 is -1, like that. All right, now a couple things. Y minus 0 is just y. We like that. Okay, so notice it's already y equals, okay, which makes our life a little easier. Okay, now inside I got a double negative, so I want to get rid of that and write that as x plus 1, like that. And then all I have to do is just distribute the -5/7. So we get y equals -5/7 x minus 5/7, and that is your slope-intercept form. Once again, anytime it's y equals, that's slope-intercept form. All right, so now we want to go to standard form. And notice again, just like the last one, I have fractions. I've got to get rid of those fractions. Okay, so I take this, and we got to get rid of those fractions. Okay, I always get rid of them first. Okay, and so I got to multiply by the least common denominator. Okay, so I asked myself, well, if I was adding these fractions or subtracting, what denominator would I use? Obviously 7. So I got to multiply through by 7. So distribute that 7 to everything in here. 7 times y is 7y. 7 times -5/7 is -5. Minus 7 times 5/7 is 5. Okay, and then I got to get the x and y both on the left. So this guy has to move over. Okay, so if it's negative on the right, when it moves over to the left, it becomes positive. So I get a positive 5x plus the 7y that's already there equals -5. And that is my standard form. So that is standard form. And so I have everything I need. I've got my standard form. I've got my slope-intercept form, and once again, these two equations describe the exact same line. They're just two different forms. And that'll wrap it up for videos this week.